What if I told you that during World War II, there was a spy so clever, so enigmatic, that even after decades of investigation, intelligence agencies still cannot agree on whether this person was working for the Allies, the Axis powers, or playing an entirely different game altogether? Today, we're diving into one of the most perplexing mysteries of the Second World War, a story so bizarre that it reads like fiction, yet every detail has been meticulously documented in classified files that have only recently come to light. Picture this. It's 1943, the height of World War II, and intelligence networks across Europe are in chaos. Double agents are everywhere. Trust is a luxury no one can afford, and in the shadows of this deadly game of espionage, one figure emerges who will become known simply as Agent Phantom. This mysterious operative managed to infiltrate the highest levels of both Allied and German intelligence simultaneously, feeding information to multiple parties while maintaining cover identities, so convincing that some historians believe there may have been multiple people operating under the same codename. But here's where the story gets truly mind-bending. In early 1944, just as the D-Day preparations were reaching their climax, Agent Phantom simply vanished. Not captured, not killed in action, not exposed as a double agent, but disappeared so completely that for months, intelligence officers on both sides continued to receive reports and communications from this ghost, even though no one could locate the source. The rabbit hole goes deeper than you might imagine, and by the end of this investigation, you'll understand why this case has haunted intelligence communities for over 80 years, and why some experts believe Agent Phantom may have been the most successful spy in human history, or possibly the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the world's most sophisticated intelligence networks. Let's start at the beginning, in the smoke-filled rooms of wartime intelligence headquarters where the first whispers of Agent Phantom began to surface. The year was 1942, and the war had reached a stalemate that would define the conflict's most crucial period. Intelligence agencies were desperately seeking advantages, and in this environment of desperation and paranoia, the most unlikely characters could emerge as pivotal figures. The first documented mention of Agent Phantom appears in a British Special Operations executive file dated September 15, 1942. The report, written by a handler known only by the codename Shepard, describes an initial contact with a potential asset who claimed to have access to high-level German communications. What made this contact unusual wasn't the claim itself, as dozens of such approaches were made weekly, but rather the extraordinary detail and accuracy of the intelligence provided during the initial meeting. According to Shepard's report, this mysterious figure correctly predicted 3 major German military movements before they occurred, provided accurate troop deployment numbers for the Eastern Front, and demonstrated knowledge of communication protocols that should have been impossible for anyone outside the German High Command to possess. Yet when Shepard attempted to verify the identity of his new source, he encountered the first of many impossibilities that would define the Agent Phantom case. The documentation provided by the potential asset checked out perfectly. Birth certificates, education records, military service history, even personal references from respected members of German society, all verified through independent channels. The problem was that according to German records accessed through other intelligence networks, the person described in these documents had died in a bombing raid 6 months earlier, yet here was someone claiming to be that very individual, with detailed knowledge that only the living person could possess. This contradiction should have ended the recruitment immediately, but the intelligence being provided was too valuable to ignore. The mysterious contact continued to deliver actionable information that proved accurate time and time again, leading to successful Allied operations and the prevention of German surprise attacks. Shepard made a decision that would later be debated in intelligence circles for decades. He continued the relationship while launching a parallel investigation into his source's true identity. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to British intelligence, German counterintelligence was dealing with their own phantom problem. In October 1942, just weeks after the British made first contact, German records showed the recruitment of an asset claiming to have infiltrated British operations. This individual, who the Germans codenamed Jespens, meaning ghost, was providing equally valuable intelligence about Allied movements and plans. The parallels between these two cases are staggering. Jespens, like Agent Phantom, provided documentation that appeared legitimate but contained the same impossible contradiction. The identity belonged to someone who was officially dead. The intelligence provided was consistently accurate and actionable. Most remarkably, both operations were being run with such secrecy that neither intelligence service initially realized they were potentially dealing with the same individual. The first hint that something extraordinary was happening came in January 1943, when a routine intelligence cross-reference revealed an alarming pattern. Information that Agent Phantom had provided to the British about German submarine movements matched almost exactly with intelligence that Jespens had supposedly obtained from British naval communications. The timing was impossible unless one source was feeding information to both networks simultaneously. This realization triggered parallel investigations on both sides, leading to one of the most surreal situations in intelligence history. British and German agents were unknowingly working to uncover the same mystery, each believing they were trying to identify a traitor within their own ranks, never suspecting that they might be chasing the same ghost. The investigation revealed layers of complexity that challenged every assumption about how espionage networks operated. Agent Phantom wasn't just playing both sides. Evidence suggested involvement with Soviet intelligence, the French resistance, and possibly even American OSS operations. Communication intercepts from this period show references to intelligence that could only have come from the highest levels of each organization, yet no single individual had access to all these sources. The mystery deepened when investigators began to notice patterns in intelligence being provided. While the information was consistently accurate, it seemed to be strategically selective. Agent Phantom would provide intelligence that prevented major disasters, but never information that would end the war quickly. It was as if someone was managing the conflict intensity, ensuring that neither side gained too decisive an advantage while preventing the most catastrophic outcomes. This realization led some intelligence officers to propose a theory so radical that it was initially dismissed as fantasy. Agent Phantom might not be working for any nation, but instead operating according to some personal agenda that required a war to continue within specific parameters. The idea that a single individual could manipulate multiple intelligence networks for their own purposes seemed impossible. Yet the evidence continued to support this conclusion. The communications themselves became a source of fascination. Agent Phantom used different methods to contact each intelligence service, but linguistic analysis revealed subtle similarities that suggested a single author. The writing style adapted perfectly to each audience, using appropriate terminology and cultural references, yet underlying patterns of syntax and word choice remained consistent. It was as if someone with extraordinary linguistic abilities was creating multiple personas while maintaining their essential identity. By mid-1943, the major intelligence services had begun to suspect they were dealing with something unprecedented. Secret meetings were held where counterintelligence chiefs shared their concerns about their phantom sources. These discussions, documented in files that remained classified until the 1990s, revealed a growing awareness that traditional espionage paradigms were inadequate to explain what was happening. The situation became even more complex when Agent Phantom began to demonstrate an almost supernatural ability to anticipate counterintelligence operations. Whenever investigators got close to identifying meeting locations or communication methods, the Phantom would change tactics just in time to avoid exposure. It was as if someone had access to the investigation files themselves, yet security around these operations was absolute. This led to an unprecedented level of paranoia within intelligence communities. If Agent Phantom could anticipate their moves so perfectly, there had to be leaks at the highest levels of multiple organizations. Witch hunts began within intelligence agencies, as officials desperately sought the traitors who must be feeding information to their mysterious adversary. These internal investigations consumed enormous resources and damaged morale, yet never identified any conclusive sources of the leaks. The Phantom's methods were as mysterious as their identity. Communications would appear through channels that should have been impossible to access. Dead drops would be made in locations under constant surveillance, yet no one was ever observed making or retrieving the materials. Most remarkably, Agent Phantom seemed to have an uncanny ability to predict when communication channels were being monitored, always managing to deliver information through alternative routes just before planned intercepts could take place. As 1943 progressed, the intelligence provided by Agent Phantom became even more valuable and more impossible to explain. The Phantom correctly predicted the outcome of major battles weeks before they occurred, provided detailed technical specifications for weapon systems that were supposed to be highly classified, and demonstrated knowledge of political decisions that were made in the most secure environments imaginable. Yet with each successful intelligence coup, the mystery only deepened. Investigations into the Phantom's methods revealed a level of sophistication that challenged understanding of what was possible for individual operators. The logistics alone of maintaining multiple identities across enemy territories, while accessing classified information from numerous sources, should have required a vast network of collaborators. Yet no evidence of such a network ever emerged. The Phantom's apparent omniscience extended to predicting their investigators' moves. On multiple occasions, counterintelligence operations designed to unmask Agent Phantom would be disrupted by sudden changes in plans that could only be made if someone knew about the operations in advance. Security was tightened repeatedly, yet somehow information continued to leak to the Phantom with clockwork regularity. This cat-and-mouse game reached its climax in early 1944, as Allied preparations for the D-Day invasion entered their final phases. Intelligence services on both sides were desperate to either secure Agent Phantom's continued cooperation or neutralize the threat this mysterious figure represented. The stakes were too high to allow such an unpredictable element to remain in play during the war's most crucial operation. Multiple elaborate traps were set, using false information to try to track the Phantom's communication methods. Counter-surveillance operations employed the most sophisticated techniques available, with teams watching teams in an attempt to catch the uncatchable. Resources that could have been used for the war effort itself were diverted to solving the Agent Phantom mystery. Then, on March 12, 1944, something extraordinary happened. Every intelligence service involved in tracking Agent Phantom received communication simultaneously. The messages were brief and identical. The game concludes tomorrow. The stage belongs to others now. After 18 months of the most intensive manhunt in intelligence history, Agent Phantom was apparently voluntarily ending their involvement. The final communication was followed by radio silence. Dead drops remained empty. Communication channels that had been active for months suddenly went quiet. It was as if Agent Phantom had simply decided to vanish, leaving behind only questions and a mystery that has never been solved. But the story doesn't end there. In the days following Agent Phantom's final message, something even more bizarre occurred. Intelligence continued to be provided through the established channels, but it was subtly different. The accuracy remained perfect, but the strategic selectivity was gone. Information now seemed designed to genuinely help the recipients rather than maintain some mysterious balance. Investigation revealed that these final intelligence packages had been prepared in advance and set up for automatic delivery through mechanisms that investigators still don't fully understand. It was as if Agent Phantom had anticipated their own disappearance and arranged for a final gift to the intelligence services that had been chasing them for so long. The information provided during this final phase proved crucial to several Allied operations in the months leading up to D-Day. German defensive positions were revealed in detail. Communication protocols were compromised, and supply line vulnerabilities were exposed. It was as if Agent Phantom's final act was to tip the balance decisively toward Allied victory. Yet even this apparent betrayal of German interests contained mysteries. The intelligence provided was selective enough that while it helped ensure Allied success, it also allowed for organized German retreats that prevented the complete destruction of entire armies. Once again, it seemed as if someone was managing the conflict intensity rather than simply choosing sides. The investigation into Agent Phantom's identity continued long after the war ended. Intelligence files from multiple nations were cross-referenced. Survivor interviews were conducted, and every possible lead was pursued. The results of these investigations, when finally compiled in the 1960s, painted a picture that was simultaneously more and less satisfying than investigators had hoped. Evidence suggested that Agent Phantom had been a real person, not a committee or organization operating under a single code name. Linguistic analysis, behavioral patterns, and the sheer consistency of character across different interactions all pointed to an individual operator. Yet this conclusion only made the mystery more profound, as it implied capabilities that seemed to transcend human limitations. The Phantom's knowledge base encompassed military strategy, political science, linguistics, cryptography, psychology, and numerous other disciplines at a level that will require decades of specialized training in each field. The ability to maintain multiple cover identities while operating across enemy territories suggested resources and skills that no known intelligence training could provide. Perhaps most mysteriously, Agent Phantom seemed to possess an almost prophetic understanding of how the war would develop. Intelligence provided early in the Phantom's career proved accurate, not just for immediate operations, but for strategic developments that wouldn't occur for months or even years. It was as if someone was working from a script of future events. These capabilities led some investigators to propose theories that ventured into the realm of science fiction. Could Agent Phantom have been a time traveler with knowledge of historical outcomes? Might they have been an extraterrestrial observer managing human conflict? While such ideas were never seriously entertained in official reports, the sheer impossibility of explaining the Phantom's abilities through conventional means left room for the most extraordinary speculation. More rational theories focus on the possibility that Agent Phantom represented some previously unknown intelligence organization, perhaps operating independently of any national government. The resources required for such an operation would have been enormous, but the potential benefits of manipulating a global conflict might have justified the investment for the right organization. Another theory suggested that Agent Phantom might have been a highly placed individual within one of the major intelligence services who used their access to play all sides for personal or ideological reasons. This would explain the access to classified information and the ability to anticipate counterintelligence operations. However, extensive background investigations of personnel from all relevant agencies never identified any individuals with the necessary access and opportunity. The most disturbing theory, and the one that has gained the most credence among modern intelligence historians, is that Agent Phantom represented a proof of concept for intelligence manipulation techniques that were far more advanced than anything officially acknowledged. If a single operator could manipulate multiple intelligence networks so effectively, what might be possible with greater resources and coordination? This theory gained support from post-war analysis of other intelligence operations that showed similar patterns of impossible knowledge and strategic manipulation. Agent Phantom might not have been unique, but rather the most successful example of a new type of intelligence operation that other organizations attempted to replicate. The implications of this possibility continue to influence intelligence community thinking today. If the Agent Phantom operation demonstrated that it was possible to manipulate major powers through strategic information control, then similar operations might be ongoing in current conflicts. The Phantom's methods could be seen as a blueprint for information warfare that has evolved into modern forms of intelligence manipulation. Modern technology would make some of Agent Phantom's achievements easier to replicate. Advanced communications, computer analysis of intelligence patterns, and sophisticated identity creation techniques could potentially allow contemporary operators to achieve similar results. The question that haunts current intelligence officials is whether such operations are already underway and simply haven't been detected yet. The Agent Phantom case also raised fundamental questions about the nature of intelligence work itself. If a single operator could manipulate multiple agencies so effectively, what did that say about the security and effectiveness of those organizations? The Phantom's success suggested that traditional counterintelligence methods were inadequate against sufficiently sophisticated opponents. These concerns led to major reforms in intelligence practices after the war. Communication security was enhanced, verification procedures were strengthened, and cross-referencing between allied agencies became standard practice. Yet intelligence historians note that many of these reforms might actually make Phantom-type operations easier by creating more complex systems with additional vulnerabilities. The personal cost of the Agent Phantom investigation was enormous. Careers were destroyed by the paranoia and witch hunts that accompanied the search for traitors who might have been feeding information to the Phantom. Trust between allied intelligence services was damaged by suspicions that one of them might be harboring or even controlling the mysterious operator. Resources that could have been used for legitimate intelligence operations were diverted to solving an ultimately unsolvable mystery. Yet the Phantom's contributions to the war effort were undeniably significant. The intelligence provided prevented numerous catastrophic defeats, saved countless lives by revealing planned attacks, and ultimately contributed to shortening the conflict by ensuring Allied success. From a purely utilitarian perspective, Agent Phantom, might be considered one of the most successful intelligence assets in history, regardless of their mysterious motivations. The psychological impact of the Agent Phantom case extended far beyond the intelligence community. The idea that a single individual can manipulate global events through superior information control captured public imagination and influenced popular culture for decades. Spy fiction began to feature protagonists with phantom-like abilities, and the case became a template for stories about mysterious manipulators working behind the scenes of historical events. Academic study of the Agent Phantom case has produced numerous theories about the psychological profile of someone capable of such an operation. The Phantom demonstrated extraordinary intellectual capabilities, emotional control under extreme pressure, and a moral framework that allowed for manipulation of others while apparently maintaining some ethical boundaries. Understanding the psychological profile has become important for both identifying potential Phantom-type operators and training intelligence personnel to recognize such manipulation. The ethical questions raised by the Agent Phantom case continue to provoke debate among intelligence professionals and ethicists. Was the Phantom's manipulation of multiple intelligence services justified by the positive outcomes achieved? Does the greater good excuse the betrayal of trust and the psychological damage inflicted on those who were manipulated? These questions have no easy answers, but remain relevant as intelligence operations become increasingly sophisticated and morally complex. Modern attempts to solve the Agent Phantom mystery have employed techniques that weren't available to wartime investigators. Computer analysis of communication patterns, advanced linguistic analysis, and psychological profiling have all been applied to the available evidence. While these methods have provided new insights into Phantom's likely capabilities and methods, they have not definitively resolved the mystery of identity or motivation. DNA analysis of materials left at dead drop sites has been attempted, but the Phantom's operational security was so thorough that no useful biological evidence has ever been recovered. It's as if Agent Phantom anticipated future investigative techniques and took precautions against them decades before such techniques were developed. The most recent analysis of the Agent Phantom case, conducted by a joint intelligence community task force in the early 2000s, concluded that the available evidence supports the existence of a single highly capable individual who operated independently of any known intelligence organization. However, the report also acknowledged that many aspects of the case remain inexplicable using current understanding of intelligence operations and human capabilities. This official conclusion has satisfied few of those who continue to study the case. The Phantom's abilities still seem to exceed what should be possible for any individual operator, regardless of their training or resources. The mystery remains as compelling today as it was when intelligence officers first began trying to identify their Phantom source. Some modern researchers have proposed that Agent Phantom might have been an early example of what would now be called an artificial intelligence, perhaps a primitive computer system that was somehow able to analyze information patterns and predict outcomes with unprecedented accuracy. While this theory might explain some of the Phantom's capabilities, it fails to account for the clearly human elements of the communications and the sophisticated understanding of human psychology that the Phantom demonstrated. The Agent Phantom case has become a touchstone for discussions about the limits of human capability and the nature of intelligence work itself. Whether viewed as historical mystery, intelligence failure, or unprecedented success story, the case continues to influence how intelligence professionals think about their work and the possibilities that exist within their field. Today, more than 80 years after Agent Phantom first made contact with intelligence services, the mystery remains unsolved. Files continue to be declassified, new analysis techniques are applied to old evidence, and researchers continue to search for the truth behind one of the most extraordinary intelligence operations in history. What we know for certain is that during the most crucial period of the 20th century's defining conflict, someone managed to manipulate the intelligence services of multiple major powers while maintaining perfect operational security and achieving outcomes that served their own mysterious agenda. Whether that someone was a genius, a time traveler, or something else entirely, Agent Phantom succeeded where countless others have failed. They disappear completely while leaving behind a mystery that continues to captivate and confound those who attempt to solve it. The story of Agent Phantom reminds us that even in our age of advanced surveillance and communication technology, it is still possible for individuals to operate in the shadows and influence events in ways that remain hidden from those in power. Perhaps that's the most unsettling lesson of all. Somewhere out there, another phantom might be playing a game whose rules and objectives we cannot even begin to understand.